Well, let's also tell you that Djibouti and Iran have decided to restore ties after 7 years. The Iranian Prime Ministry says the move follows a meeting between prime ministers of both countries in New York on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly session. Djibouti, along with some other Muslim countries, joined the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in cutting diplomatic relations with Iran in response to the storming of the Saudi embassy in Tehran by Iranian protesters in 2016, following the execution of top Saudi Shia cleric Sheikh Nimr al-Nimr. Iran adds that the two countries have agreed to strengthen cooperation in a wide range of areas, including investment, trade, science, and technological innovation. Now, joining me live tonight in NC Continental Prime is Peter Clottey, an international journalist. He joins me from New York on the ongoing United Nations General Assembly. A warm welcome to you, Peter, and thanks for joining us on NC Continental Prime.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Peter, what's your assessment of the progress made in advancing the 17 Sustainable Development Goals during the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly, and what are the key challenges that remain?
Well, thank you very much for having me and for that question. A lot of countries that have not been doing so well, despite strenuous efforts, particularly in the less wealthier nations in Asia and Africa, got together here at the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, the 78th session, to deliberate on the best steps forward in order for them to catch up, because some of them have had some challenges surmounting them. This year was halfway through the 2030 target for the Sustainable Development Goals threshold to be met. Unfortunately, things happened and they were unable to do that. So this two-day summit, which ended on the 19th, was made in order for these countries to share ideas from those who have already made significant strides. So they are learning or taking a cue from them, and that was hopeful, or that is being expected, will jumpstart or expedite the process so they can come at par with those who are doing well. So there will be an even playing field with the target of 2030 in sight for the Sustainable Development Goals to be implemented around the world. So these are some of the issues that were discussed during the two-day summit here in New York.
No, thank you, Peter. In the context of the theme of this year's UNGA, which is rebuilding trust and reigniting global solidarity, what are the most pressing global issues, in your opinion, that world leaders should prioritize to accelerate action on the 2030 agenda and promote peace, prosperity, and sustainability for all?
You know, there were three key issues that almost all the leaders here, highlighted on. You talked about the climate crisis. You talked about peace and security, especially in the, in the ongoing war in Ukraine, particularly, which a lot of people in sub-Saharan Africa and the rest of the world blame for escalating prices of goods and services, supply chain issues, inflation, restlessness, where private sector, public sector workers are displeased with what is going on, that their governments cannot meet their needs and aspirations. And the other one is the ongoing coups or political instability in part of West Africa and Central Africa. And they are calling for more concerted effort to look at the underlying issues that led to this forceful military takeover of government. Of course, President Tinubu also talked about the need to expedite constitutional rule, a return to constitutional rule in neighboring Niger and other parts of West Africa like Mali and the rest, where the military has taken over. And then, of course, in Gabon as well. So there are three-pronged approaches. They are also calling on wealthier nations to pay more instead of paying, they said, lip service that they promise to pay as
in climate financing
for African countries who have been impacted negatively by the ongoing climate crisis. So these are the key issues that all these leaders seem to be talking about here.
Now, finally, Peter, before I let you go, Kenyan President, which was one of the highlights of the last 48 hours at the United Nations General Assembly, while speaking, did strongly criticize the United Nations Security Council for what he perceived as its ineffectiveness and absence of democratic principles, while calling for reform of the Security Council. What specific reforms does President Ruto of Kenya propose to the United Nations Security Council to enhance its effectiveness and inclusivity?
Well, President Ruto is not alone in this call for democratic reforms of the UN organs, particularly the UN Security Council. With population of Africa over 1.3, 1.4 billion people, a host of countries, 55, 54, 56, if you may, they are saying that decisions made by the Security Council particularly impact on Africa, with Africa not having a table having a seat at the table, and they are calling for a methodical approach of reforms. Now, the UN organs have said, yeah, we need the reforms. However, they are not moving forward with it. At least that is the argument of the African Union and its member countries, including Kenya. So they are united. African leaders are united in calling for immediate action on reforms so that Africa would have at least minimum 2 seats at the UN Security Council. So when decisions are made, Africans will be involved, because decisions are made that concerns Africa, with Africa not being at the table. So the key point is having a seat at the US.
Okay, apologies for the poor audio quality. Thank you very much, Peter Clottey, for joining us at NC Continental.